Oh, there we go. Okay, I got her. Okay. Chat. All right, here we go. You have your notes in front of you. We did the basics last class. Today we are. Hello. Okay, sorry, I was saying hi online. She can't see me because I can't record and do a video here. So there you go. All right, we are going to start with 5.2, and we're going to look at the second derivative number line today. So last class we did the first derivative number line, okay? Now, I'm going to go back and remind you, okay? So we have a sentence that f of x, okay, is the original okay? And the second derivative describes the curvature of f of x. Okay. Right, we're not doing f prime today. We're just looking at the original and double prime. All right. And one thing that we talked about last class, just a little bit, was the point of inflection. Point of inflection. So that's a POI for abbreviation. And that point of inflection, so I'm going to draw a little picture here to help me, because I remember pictures better than I remember sentences sometimes. And I'm just going to put these two dots right here. So this is a point of inflection. This is the point of inflection. It's where the concavity changes. Okay? So it's where the concavity changes. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight the concave down and the concave down. Okay, and the concave up. So similar to that picture we had last class, I just put an extra curve on it. Yep. Thanks. I haven't done attendance yet anyways. Okay. So the point of inflection is where concavity changes. All right, I can see that. But we have a second description that goes with this. All right, so right here, I'm going to draw a tangent line through this point of inflection. And one thing that we talked about last class was the greatest rate. Okay, now a rate is the slope. So points of inflection have a second description. Besides the concavity changing, it is the greatest or the least rate, right? Steepest slope, okay? Now this is a negative, right? This is the biggest negative slope, right? As my tangent line goes across this curve, biggest negative slope, because right here, then it starts going back up, okay? So this is the minimum slope, otherwise known as the least, right? Minimum, least rate of change. Slope is a rate of change. So this is a least rate of change. otherwise known as the minimum slope. Okay. The other point is the maximum slope. Okay, so I'm just drawing that tangent line to show you that it's the greatest slope. As you move that tangent line across the graph, the points of inflection, maximum slope. It's the biggest slope. This happens to be a positive, which is why it's the biggest. This is a negative, which is why it's the smallest. Okay, so this is a greatest rate of change. So that point of inflection has two descriptions. One of them is just it changes concavity. The other one is talking about the biggest and the smallest slope. So we're going to write 3 sentences, and I'm going to use the picture to help me write that. Okay? So f of x, and I have to have my sentences so that when I get questions, I know what to write to find the answer. F of x has a point of inflection somewhere. Okay, so I'm looking at the POIs, and I have to use calculus to answer it. F of x has a POI because, okay, because what? And, okay, so notice that the point of inflection is between yellow and purple. So if it's between, it's a 0, because it's between. Okay? And, right, yellow, purple, purple, yellow. They're both points of inflection. So that means the second derivative changes signs. It doesn't matter plus, minus, minus, plus. It just matters that it was changing. Okay, so there's one sentence. You're like, okay, I feel pretty good about that one. Now we're going to do the sentence for the pink and the green. Little bit trickier. F of x has a, I'll do this one first, least rate. Okay, you could say minimum slope. Okay, minimum slope at some particular point because what happens to get the pink points? We have to be specific. How do I get this point of inflection? Yes, okay. So it's in between, so it's got to be 0. Okay, so we have to have the 0. All right. And how is it changing? It's specific to that point. Okay, yes, so double prime is negative to positive. That's how you get the minimum rate or the negative slope. It's got to be concave down, then concave up. So we've got to have the double prime 0, and it's specific how it's changing. Points of inflection are any change in concavity. Minimum rate, right, is specific changing. All right, so we're going to write the same sentence, but we're going to do it for the greatest rate. F of x has greatest rate, which is a maximum slope at, because when you're looking at a picture, thinking of the biggest slope, you can kind of eyeball it, right? But this is actually going to calculate it. Because okay, so I've got to get the green point, so that's concave up to concave down. So double prime positive to negative. All right. So I've got some max-min sentences from last class. Now I have some max-min rate sentences from today. Now we're going to do 3 questions. Okay. I don't have enough room for my examples, so I'm going to flip the page. So I'll give you a minute to make sure you have your sentences. And then we'll do our examples. If you have a calculator, it might be handy to have that. If not, you can do Desmos or your phone would work. There's a couple up here if you need them. Okay, here we go. First example. Y equals x cubed plus 6x squared plus 9x plus 6. Okay, here's the question. Find the point of inflection and where f of x is concave up. So I'm just asking for 2 different things. So I'm going to write both sentences, and then I'm going to do the work to figure out how I fill in the answer. So I'm going to start with point of inflection. Okay, that's the sentence I'm going to write first. So point of inflection. F of x has a point of inflection at, right, the answer, because, okay, point of inflection, point of inflection. All right, the picture is like helping me to remember what I'm looking for. So because double prime is 0 and the concavity has to change. So double prime changes signs. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm looking for. Point of inflection is that sentence. I'm going to write my sentence for concave up. And then I'll do the work. Okay. F of x is concave up somewhere because, okay, concave up, double prime is positive. Okay. All right, those are my answer sentences. I just have to fill in the blanks. The sentences tell you what work you need to do to figure out what goes in that spot. Okay, so I look at it, and I'm just going to look at my sentence. because f prime double prime is 0. Okay, so that tells me I need to find where double prime is 0. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. Y prime. Not going to stop at prime. I'm going to go to double prime. Double prime. Okay. Right, I'm still working on this first part. Just where is double prime 0? Okay. All right, so I get x equals -2. Okay, the second part of my sentence says double prime changes sign. So that means I'm going to need the double prime number line. So I'm going to go right here. I'm going to put a giant Y double prime next to it. When you label your number line, it makes it harder to plug in the wrong thing. Okay. And I have, right, I've got one number. I've got one spot that's in between. Okay. So now I just have 2 sections on the number line that I need to figure out what's happening. So I'm just going to pick my x's, right, both sections, and I'm going to plug it in. See that? How my little arrow is coming from double prime? Whatever number line you're working on, that's the thing that you're going to use. If this says double prime, you use double prime. The number line and the equation match. Yes. Because I can't do math. Let's try -3. Thanks. All right. My labels are matching. It tells me where to plug it in. And let's plug in. Right? You can use your calculator. You can do it in your head. So, negative. Right, the between was 0. I already know that part. So I'm going to test this one. All right. Okay. Point of inflection is where it's changing. Negative to pop. All right, that counts. Okay. X equals -2. Now a point of inflection implies X and Y. So you do need to find the Y coordinate. Okay, so there's my point. I get -2 and Y equals 4. Okay, so f of x has a point of inflection at a spot on the f of x graph. Okay, so all of these things here, that first line is coming from f of x, which is why I went back to the original. Okay, all right, orange, concave up because double prime is positive. It's that part. That's the answer. Where double prime is positive. Okay, so I have to transfer this whole section. F of x is concave up when x is more than -2. Now, you could also do it in that interval notation. The notation doesn't matter. That's not specific. But it's this whole section of the number line, wherever it was positive. Okay. Y equals, we're only doing 3 examples today, guys, so we're 40% done. 3x to the 5th minus 2x to the 4th. And this time I'm going to say find this is a good, okay, find the least rate or minimum slope of f of x. Okay, so I'm asking for the least rate. So I have to write my sentence that's going to tell me how to answer this. Now, before I do this, I'm going to draw a picture because I'm like, okay, minimum rate, biggest negative slope. That, right? I need the negative slope. The steepest slope is the point of inflection. That's how you get the steepest tangent line. So once I have that picture, I'm like, okay, now I need to describe this so that I know what to look for. So f of x has a least rate somewhere because what am I looking at? Well, it's a point of inflection. I kind of need to know that it's the point of inflection. Min and max rates are points of inflection. So because double prime is 0, and how do I make sure I'm going to get the minimum rate? It's got to go like that. It's got to go down to concave up. So double prime negative to positive. Whew. The sentences are the hard part. It's not the algebra. That's all pretty straightforward. It's the sentences that are telling you what to look for. The least rate is. Okay, it actually did say find the least rate. So I added a sentence that said the least rate is. This is telling me where it's going to happen. All right. Okay. So I need this spot. Okay, that's what I need. Okay. Here we go. Y prime equals 15x4 minus 8x cubed. Double prime equals, oh, sorry, there you go. All right, gotta do my derivatives. Gotta do my zeros. Little factoring. You use fractions or decimals, that's okay. Okay, so I've done the double prime, I've done the zeros. Now I need to figure out how it's changing. Okay, so double prime, I've got 0 and 0.4. I did the decimal because it's easier for me to pick numbers between when I'm looking at a decimal. All right, so I'm just going to pick some numbers out. 0.1, x equals 1. Okay, so do some plugging in, see what you get, see if you can figure out what goes in this first blank, and then we'll talk about how we fill out that second blank. It might not be a really pretty number, so feel free to use some calculating. Yes, yes. Okay, so it's a double prime, which means you're going to use the double prime to plug it in. If the number line says double prime, you plug in double prime. So if I'm plugging in -1, I like to plug it into the factored version. It doesn't matter. So I get negative for the first one. All right. So I'm going to plug in 0.1. Okay, so I got my thing. I'm gonna highlight what I'm looking for. Least rate, so negative to positive, is this spot here because it's changing from negative to positive. Not this first one, right? It's negative, negative, so nothing happens there. Negative, positive. That's the spot. That is my answer. So this is x equals 0.4. Okay, so we need to find the y coordinate. I'm going to use a calculator to find that y coordinate so that I can plug in the 0.1. Okay, so 3 parentheses, 0.2 power 5. Right, so I'm just, there we go. Okay. Minus 2.2 power 4. Oh, not 0.2, my bad. 0.4. 4. Okay, So you could type the decimal or you could do the fraction. Okay. 0.02048. Okay, so that's a really small point. That's fine. Okay. Are you ready for the pink sentence? This one right here. Here we go. All right. There it is. The least rate. What is the rate at that spot? Okay, see this? There's the tangent line that has the most negative slope. It's the steepest. What's the slope? That's what a rate is. What's the slope that happens at that spot? Which one of these things is going to tell me the slope? Y, y prime, or y double prime? Y prime. Y prime tells you the tangent slope. So if you want the rate, you actually want to know what the rate is. That's the slope of the pink line. That is the y prime. So I'm going to plug in here. The actual slope is, okay, 15.4 to the fourth minus, yes, calculator, 15.4 power 4, 8.4 power 3, right? And, okay, there we go. So we get negative 0.128. I am going to hit math frac. Okay, so the slope is, the slope at that particular point is negative 16 over 125. Nothing works. Okay, I was going to put that in Desmos and show you the point, but my computer doesn't work. So I can't. Maybe another time. Last example. Last one. You can do it. We're almost there. Okay, 3. All right. F of x, or y, equals 2x to the fourth minus 16x cubed plus 36x squared. All right. Find where f of x is increasing and concave down. So I want both of those things happening at the same time. So I'm going to write both sentences. Okay? So f of x is increasing and concave down in a particular spot because f prime is positive. Okay, so that's the first thing. Increasing is f prime positive. And concave down is double prime negative. So I have two things that are happening. Concave down is double prime negative. So I have two things to look for. One of them is from the first derivative. One of them is from the second derivative. We're just going to find them one at a time. Y prime equals 8x cubed minus Okay, so I know those numbers get a little bit big. However, I am certain that it should divide out pretty nicely. Okay. So how do I find y prime positive? I gotta do the number line. Means I have to find the zeros and then label it. Okay, so this is the work that's going with the yellow portion, right? Just the first derivative. I get 0 and 3. All right, I do my number line. So x equals 1, 4. That's a lot. Check those signs, see what you get. I would put it into this one, which is the same, which is that. If you're using a calculator, it sort of doesn't matter. Like a negative, right? So my first one's a negative. Find the concave down. And then we're just going to see a little bit. Number line, then we'll look at how to overlap. Nice. All right. So we get negative, positive, positive. So at this point, I'm looking at, okay, I've got the positive. That's what my number line tells me. Okay, so I'll finish writing that in. 1 times negative, okay. 8 times 4 times 1 times 1. All right. I now have to do the orange. Means second derivative. So here we go. Second derivative. X squared minus 96x plus 72. I know the number looks big, but I'm pretty sure that 24 factors out. Okay. Whew, got it. So this gives me x equals 3 and x equals 1. All right, so this is the orange section. This is the second derivative. Means when you do the second derivative number line, you better plug into the orange portion. Now, when I have two number lines, I do kind of like to line them up. So see here how I have a 3? I'm going to put my 3 in approximately the same place because, you know, it's related to the same problem. And then a 1. So if 0 is here, I'm going to put my 1 a little bit to the right of the 0. Just so that it's easy to see the number lines together. Okay? I promise you it is easier if you line up your number lines one on top of the other because then you can overlap them really easily. All right, let's plug it in. 2, 4. All right, so I got positive. Negative. Positive. Okay, I'm going to highlight. I'm looking for double prime negative. So I have two things that I've highlighted. And now I need the answer. Okay, so how do I figure out the answer? I need yellow and orange. It's right there. It's between 1 and 3. Yellow and orange. Okay, if I go like this, it's not orange. If I go like this, it's not orange. It has to be both of the colors, which is why I suggest lining your number lines up, because then you can just compare them. I'm asking you where it's yellow and orange. So you have to make sure that it's both colors. So that's between 1 and 3. All right, that's my answer. Between 1 and 3. You could also do the interval. Woo! High five, guys.